Albany, an adjunct lecturer in the history department at SUNY Portland, and I'll be your co-instructor for PED 527. I welcome you all to the course and can't wait to get to know you throughout the 2 weeks we will be spending together. And so, as a historian, I find it incredibly important for students to reflect on the historical roots of their chosen profession. Not only do you get to learn fascinating stories about the past, but history also strengthens your mind to be skeptical, curious, empathetic, and able to see patterns across time. And of course, you learn stories about human history, what happened, how, and why. Having a history-trained brain prepares you to figure out how the past affects the present and hopefully how to shape a better future. In the spirit of this today, I will be talking with you about the history of adventure education. This slide has some key terms and questions to think about throughout the video. The key terms you'll see in here and they'll be mentioned throughout the course, but the real focus for this video is on addressing the following questions you see on this screen. This slide is presented just to give you a brief overview of what we'll be talking about today. So historical context, Kurt Hahn and adventure-based education, and then adventure education in the 21st century. Just something you can follow along to or refer back to if you decide to rewatch and use components of this video at a later point in time. All right, let's dive into the content. Some scholars argue experiential learning is as old as the human species itself. For instance, think back to perhaps the first time a human started a fire. Then the first time a human thought to put raw meat on a fire, and then that human decided to eat the said meat. In other words, humans are hardwired through evolution in our nervous system to be curious. We have learned in active and engaging ways, often in small groups, to develop the most effective ways to hunt, farm, and communicate. Scholars have argued that this biological and neurological hardwiring is why adventure education, when done correctly, is so effective. That is all well and good, but what matters most to you all, and what will be the primary focus of today's video, is the history of adventure education as it emerged and developed in the 20th century, a time also where physical education solidified itself as a field and profession. The dominant trend of the 20th century was industrialization and urbanization. And it is important to note that what we will be talking about today is also occurring globally. Anyways, between the end of the Civil War and 1900, America experienced explosive growth. The national population tripled, agricultural production more than doubled, and manufacturing output grew 6 times over. Such growth led to profound social changes. Most visible was the urbanization and industrialization of northern cities. Young people left rural centers to work in higher-waged industrial jobs. As more people migrated from the countryside to urban centers to work in factories, education, which was mostly only accessible to white middle-class men, evolved to meet the demands of the urban industrial economy. Those getting an education were meant to become the managers of a growing and increasingly diverse working class. As such, education in the early to mid-20th century involved teaching lessons on individualism, literacy, and mathematics. As education became more accessible to the working class, school was meant to teach students, aka future factory workers, to be obedient but literate industrial workers. This sort of education, though, was very sedentary and passive. The current generation of our students today, Gen Z or Gen Alpha, is often called the anxious generation. But in fact, people have always been anxious about the development of the younger generation. For folks in the early to mid 20th century, there's a lot of anxiety about American men and whether or not they were quote unquote manly enough. This anxiety stemmed from the urbanization and industrialization mentioned in the previous slide. There's a true fear that American men were becoming too feminine as bureaucrats and paper pushers who kept the American economy and government functioning. As opposed to the myths of American pioneers or previous generations who earned their quote-unquote manhood fighting in wars or quote unquote, conquering the wilderness and dispossessing indigenous people of their land, the generation of middle-class white men coming of age during the height of the Industrial Revolution were perceived as being too, quote unquote, civilized. Their education was one of sedentary and passive learning, disconnected from the experiences of warfare or the taming of the frontier. There's a broad literature on how past historical actors attempted to find solutions to this crisis in masculinity, some of which are listed on the slide, but for the sake of time and relevance to you all in this class, we'll only focus on the development of adventure education. It may surprise you, but Adventure Ed was not created in mind with the development of X Games or Red Bull action sports. Instead, what we understand as modern adventure education emerges out of the context and anxieties described in the previous two slides. There are a number of people that have contributed to the theory, pedagogy, and popularization of adventure education, but for brevity, we'll only focus on one such person today. That person is Kurt Hahn, and he was seen as one of the fathers of modern adventure education. Born into an upper-class Jewish family living in Berlin, Germany in 1886, Hahn studied at Oxford University from 1904 to 1906, a time when fields such as sociology, psychology were just legitimized as professional fields of study. In 1920, Hahn became a headmaster at a school in Germany in which he first instituted his educational philosophy that emphasized self-discovery, play, trial, and error. He continued to teach in Germany until he was arrested by the Nazis and deported to England. It was this experience, along with his training at Oxford, that shaped his future theories and curriculum. Hahn developed his school curricula to address 6 social concerns that still remain relevant today, which he referred to as the declines in modern society. I want you to take a moment to read through and reflect on what are some modern examples of these 6 declines. I'd be curious to know if we thought of similar examples. However, before we talk more about Hahn, it is important to acknowledge that he is developing and implementing these theories at a particular moment in time. Yes, while there are many parallels between then and now, right, Hahn is thinking through these things, observing, right, the rise and fall of Nazi Germany, social unrest because of the war in Vietnam across the globe. It's also important to take a moment, though, to think through Hahn's declines in modern society. These declines are broad generalizations and devoid of class, gender, or racial considerations. Remember, for a majority of the 20th century, access to education, particularly the education that we know of today, was limited to only a small percentage of people. So the audience for Hahn's work and theories are typically wealthy white individuals. Now, this is important for us as current educators to acknowledge that our students still contend with the repercussions of institutionalized racism or sexism of the past. For instance, rates of drowning are much higher amongst Black students, not because cultural stereotypes are true, but because access to public pools and affordable swim lessons have been restricted for centuries. And the same could be going for more adventure activities as well, right? Access to rock climbing or skiing might be more open to certain segments of the population than others for historical reasons. And so when we have these students in our classrooms, we need to be sensitive to and understand, right, our students' lived experiences. I think this sort of blind spot is also overt in number 4 and number 6. And there's a true lack of consideration for one's socioeconomic status. For instance, oftentimes to purchase things or to engage in hobbies that emphasize craftsmanship take time and are cost prohibitive. The way our economic system and culture is set up in the United States is to value the person who is quote unquote productive, right? The busy beaver, always working on the move, right? They're seen very much as virtuous. While those who don't have jobs for a variety of different reasons are oftentimes dismissed as lazy and unproductive members of society. Similarly, American society values consumerism. As Americans, spending money on things perhaps we don't need to is seen as a positive contribution to our economy and society. The person who has the newest and fanciest items is seen as successful. And critiquing Han is not meant then to discredit his contributions, right? Two things can be true at once. But thinking deeper about the theories we base our current curriculum on and understanding its strengths and faults is important because it prepares you to figure out how theories of the distant past affect our students in the present, and hopefully how we can use and reframe these theories to shape a better future for our students. Anyways, to continue, it was in England throughout World War II and after that Han began to develop the outward bound experience. In 1941, Lawrence Holt, the father of one of Han's students, approached Han with the need for a training program for young sailors who were having difficulty surviving the stress and adversity created by World War II. In 1946, the newly created Outward Bound Trust began the expansion of Han's program across England and eventually, as well as currently, had a global reach. Listed on this slide are essential curriculum components of Outward Bound. You may notice parallels between this and our own upcoming experience. But I also want you to take a moment to think about how these components seek to address the declines in modern society Han also identified. Ultimately, the goal of Outward Bound and Han's educational philosophy was to produce productive and compassionate citizens. Bringing Outward Bound to Colorado was pivotal to the expansion of adventure-based education in the U.S. As you see in the list on this slide, adventure education continues to be a growing and influential method of teaching in the U.S. It appears in a variety of different forms, through a variety of different programs and companies, as well as curriculum models. In some ways, the state and needs of education in the 21st century are different than the needs of the 20th century. For one, thanks to the civil rights and other social justice movements of the latter 20th and early 21st century, all U.S. citizens, no matter their race, class, gender, or ability, are entitled to an equitable education. This access to educational and recreational spaces provide more opportunities for adventure and experiential-based learning for marginalized groups. Secondly, however, is that the U.S. has a post-industrial economy, meaning the factory jobs that dominated the economic sector in the 20th century has been replaced with service industry jobs. Education in the US is still largely geared to serve the national economy. But in a post-industrial economy, the skills required by these industries are one that adventure education is uniquely placed to address. I encourage you to think about how adventure ed addresses the 6 declines of modern society. Educators now use a variety of experiential techniques and concepts to create a classroom of orchestrated immersion. Orchestrated immersion creates a space where students feel accepted and safe, and it produces an ability to take risks necessary to grow and learn. When we do this, we are poised for maximum learning. We are in a flow state where all of our senses are engaged in the process. The personal touch in adventure education is also a key part of any adventure program. Building a community is personal because we must trust each other with our personal and psychological safety. In sum, adventure education provides students with the social and emotional skills necessary to succeed in modern life. And just a little plug for more history stuff. If any of this stuff interests you, Feel free to sit with me at a meal. There's a ton of overlap between the history of adventure ed and the camp we'll actually be staying at during our time in the Adirondacks. And so I'm always happy to chat more.